Hello and welcome to Unprofessional Engineering. My name is James.
And you got Luke.
Luke, it is the season to enjoy the snow outside, and we're taking a look at sled riding, all things sled riding.
Is it really the season?
I mean,
We don't
well,
have snow. We have zero snow here in Pennsylvania. So
we
I don't.
had snow.
Yeah,
and then
but
it
that
went
wasn't
away.
that was not sledding snow.
It wasn't.
For sure.
Pittsburgh's not really great at sledding snow
No,
anyways.
it is not.
So Luke, quick history.
Shoot.
Actually, can I start off with a rant first? Are you okay with that?
Ooh, are you stealing my rant a little bit?
I don't think so, no.
Okay.
Well, I guess I'm stealing it a little bit.
Okay. Shoot.
So we don't get into the fine details of a lot of things, right?
Never.
We try and keep things pretty relatable, maybe have a little bit of fun with stuff, but we straight up call ourselves unprofessional
It's
engineering.
in the name, people.
It's
Yep.
in the name. Now, I don't mind if people yell at us and say we didn't do a good enough job. That's fine. But there's this thing called popular mechanics. Have you heard of popular mechanics?
It rings a bell. Yes,
Have
I've
you
heard of
looked
popular
at
mechanics.
their content? That stuff is a whole different level of hot garbage.
Yeah.
It is like the most clickbaity, useless stuff that is out there on the internet. And I love reading the comments of everyone being mad about it too, because they are just the worst. So
Yeah, I think it's gone downhill because in my vast experience with Popular
Yes.
Mechanics, I remember the actual magazine Popular Mechanics as a kid, and I would love the magazines. I remember being, in high school and middle school, and we'd go to the library, and that's all I would look at is like Popular Mechanics and like Model
Yeah.
Rocket magazines. That was it.
Yeah, that's why I don't understand why it's so bad now. But boy, it's really disappointing anytime I click on something.
Sorry
they
to
do.
hear that.
Yeah. All right. So anyways, back to sled riding.
A little bit of history, James. Let's hear
Yeah.
it.
Okay. So sleds, sledge, or sleigh. They're land
Sledge?
vehicles.
I saw that. What does that mean? Sledge? Like a...
Well, I'll get there.
Okay,
How about
sorry.
that?
Okay, sorry.
So they're land vehicles. They slide across the surface, but usually it's on like an icy or snowy surface. That's what we
Gotcha.
typically think of that. But that being said, it can just be over like dry land, like the desert, or even kind of like marshland as well. So some designs are used to transport passengers, kind of like what we're probably going to focus on here,
Mm-hmm.
across relatively levelish ground. And others are for downhill recreation. So the fun stuff that everybody loves. Well, not everyone, but some people like to do. So in America, sled is kind of the general term that people use, and it implies like a little device, kind of like sled riding, right?
Mm-hmm.
So that's what it means. Usually recreational. Sledge, on the other hand, so Sledge, I assume that's how you pronounce it,
Yes.
implies a heavier sled, and that's used for moving like objects. Like think of Egypt using it to move stones to build the pyramids or something.
Gotcha.
That would be closer to that. And then sleigh, more specifically, is used in Britain to be a vehicle that's essentially like a cold season alternative to like a wagon or something.
It's
of
also
that
what
sort.
Santa Claus drives.
Most importantly, it is what Santa Claus
Yeah, I was going to
drives.
say, I didn't know where you were going with these people in Britain, but that's Santa Claus's ride.
Yeah, I agree.
Okay.
Yeah. So fun fact for you.
Shoot.
The traditional explanation of the pressure of sleds on snow or ice producing a thin film of water to enable them to slide is a total lie. Did you know that?
You totally just destroyed a whole bunch of science I'm going to drop a little bit later, but that's okay.
Thanks. It's not a total lie, but that's what I'm throwing out there.
Total? Okay.
Well, not really. It's saying that it just reduces friction completely, and that's the only reason that you move. But
Oh, I
obviously,
gotcha.
there's more that goes into that.
I gotcha.
So briefer history. Ancestors used to make sleds out of whale bones, especially the Native Americans. As I mentioned, the ancient Egyptians are thought to have used sledges to haul huge stones to make all of the fancy stuff they made. Viking ships, all
saw this
places
one.
that they excavated Viking ships have been found to use sleds and sledges to move stuff and people around. I think that's interesting.
I think
I
they
love
used
Viking
them.
ships.
I think they used them in a lot of cases where they would use them with rollers as well.
Yes.
So rather than just dragging on the ground, they would have the sledge, and then they'd have basically trees laying on their sides, and they would roll across where it like super rough ground.
Yeah. If you haven't checked out our episode on how Viking ships are made, go check it out. I think it's like episode 14 or something.
Yeah, I didn't do that one. It's one of the
You
ones
did
I
not
didn't do.
know. Yeah. So you'll be disappointed that Luke's not there, but
That's
otherwise
all
it's still
right.
pretty cool. Fun fact for you again, the
Shoot.
sledge actually was a valuable tool for economic reasons as well. Did you see this? Because it had no wheels. It was exempt from toll collections.
What?
Isn't that sneaky, sneaky, sneaky stuff?
Wonder if I drove on the PA
The turnpike.
Oh
Yeah.
my goodness. So I've been driving the Pennsylvania Turnpike for like literally my entire life. And we used to be able to go from Pittsburgh to York, PA for like $9.
Oh my goodness,
Now,
it's so much more.
it's literally like $29.
Yeah.
And I just don't get how the prices keep on going up and up and up. It's bananas. So,
I know.
sorry.
I feel like you really need like one of those Teslas that self-drives so you can just take a nap on the turnpike across the state. That's how it
so
works,
dangerous.
right? All right, a couple other things. The advances in the Industrial Revolution like kind of made it so that people have more time, right? So people are just hanging out and they're like, what should we do with all of our free time? That's when sled riding kind of turned into a recreation and it started turning into downhill sled riding. People would use a toboggan, which is like a log sled, and race down all this cool stuff. But what I thought was really interesting about this is that men and women would use this almost as like a gala where they would dress up in like fancy clothing.
I saw the
and
pictures.
show this off, like top hats and just seems so bizarre considering now I wear like 47 layers of clothing to go out and
I
sled
bet
ride.
you would look good in a top hat.
You think so?
Yeah, you could definitely pull a top hat off.
Okay, well,
I think so.
Maybe I'll give it a try. And then there's a bunch of stuff about like tobogganing becoming a sport. So Russia and Canada kind of founded it together, discovered the sport together, created the sport together. And eventually it became a number of events in the Olympics, the luge and the skeleton thing and
the
all that.
skeleton is the most insane one.
Oh my goodness.
Like ever. This is the one where they go head first, right?
Yeah.
One of
yeah,
them is head
that's
first and
stupid.
one is foot first. And
Yeah.
it is crazy like how fast they go. And it's just like how do you ever train for that? It's like, okay, I think I want to die today, so I'm going to do my first run doing the skeleton. Just like I can't
Yeah.
imagine that there's like an easy way to train for something like that.
I'm with you.
Clearly,
one last,
we're not talking about that though today.
No, we are not. One last thing I want to give you as a fun fact. You know the bobsled, right? Everybody's heard of a bobsled. Its name came from the fact that early riders of the bobsled thought it helped to bob their head to gain speed. Yeah. So there's that. Think about that.
I think people were dumber.
I think people were dumber too. Okay, moving on, Luke. What do we got?
Let's talk about the types of Sledge, James,
Oh,
because
yes,
I
please.
number one, I think there's a lot of debate, like which ones are faster, which ones are, better
Yeah.
for kids, better for adults. So I'm going to run through some of them. The first one, and this one you don't see too often anymore, at least in its original form. This is what's called the Toboggan or the gooseneck sled. So this is the one.
Gooseneck.
It's flat and it has the J shape on the front.
Uh-huh.
They would call them toboggans or goosenecks. And basically it was a whole bunch of really thin wood that was, bent up at the front so that it kind of had that little plow effect to go over the snow. You don't see those very often. Usually they're like decorations on people's porches nowadays at Christmas time.
I think those are good ones to like haul your kids around onto. Like if
Exactly.
they're so little that you're just going to pull them, I think that's a good choice.
I wasn't going to say little when you have lazy children.
Lazy, good for nothing
Good for nothing children. You can pull them around on a toboggan, but they're almost like a nostalgic thing. They're typically made out of wood. They're probably super expensive. What they've kind of turned into is these super cheap, like $4, Dollar General red plastic sleds. That is what is kind of considered a toboggan now. And it's typically a multi-passenger. It's usually, 2 kids, 1 adult. That's kind of what they're meant for.
Okay.
But that's kind of the modern day toboggan.
I have a friend, actually a couple friends who, what do you call the winter hats that you wear?
I feel like this is a trick question.
No, it's fine.
I call it a beanie. usually,
Okay, so I've
or a
heard
tassel cap.
beanie, I've heard tassel caps, but then I get yelled at when there's not a tassel or tassel on the
Oh,
top. I've heard of stocking caps. I've
I've
heard of
never heard
knit
of.
caps,
I've heard of no.
winter hats, but I have two friends that call the hat a toboggan.
No,
Yeah, I
they're
know.
just
That's just
making
totally
that
wrong.
up.
They're from Podunk, nowhere, Pennsylvania. So I
Yeah.
feel like they just don't know how to do things properly. But anyways, sorry
Okay.
about that.
The next one is a saucer, and good friend of the show. Uh, um,
Wow, real good friend.
but terrible. I am terrible at this. Clark Griswold is famous for highlighting this in
Oh, you're
Christmas
right.
Vacation.
Oh, I
That
love Christmas
was
Vacation.
a saucer. It was a metal saucer, which you don't see metal saucers too often anymore. And there's a reason for no more metal saucers. But it's essentially a giant round concave disc. It looks like Captain America's shield, has little handles on the side.
It does.
And you essentially just kind of lean right or left so that you can continue to go straight because they're impossible to steer. Saucers nowadays are typically made out of plastic. And the reason they're not made out of metal anymore, for the most part, it's difficult to find, is number one, you can make them so cheaply out of plastic. But the original reason was those metal ones were fast, like dangerously fast. And the inability to steer them, I think what happened in like the 80s and 90s, from what I remember, was kids were just getting so hurt. We'll talk about safety a little bit later on. But the plastic saucers are far slower than the metal saucers. The next one is...
Hold on. I got some saucer fun facts for you.
Okay.
So first, if you want to try and ruin Christmas Vacation a little bit, watch the saucer scene, and you can clearly see in the snow the line for the metal wire that's pulling him down the hill.
I never
It's
watched
really funny.
for that. Okay.
Yeah. So a couple of fun facts. So one, not great for going on vacation because they're heavy if it's the metal one.
Mhm.
In 1915, 120,000 flexible flyers were sold, averaging 2,000 per day. The smallest ones went for $250 a piece, and the largest was 8.5 feet long, or I guess in diameter, and weighed 41 pounds, and it could hold 6 adults, and it cost $12.
Okay. I think you might be confusing the flexible flyer that you steer with the saucer on that one.
Oh, really?
I think so.
Oh, we're not talking. Okay,
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah, we're
just
not
the
talking flexible flyer yet. Yeah, we were
Well,
talking
then I'm
saucers.
going to hold off and not tell you the rest of my facts. But I do think that we should take a break for a word from our sponsor.
I have to assume that this is Children's Palace, or what was the name of those other toy stores back in the day?
KB Toys,
KB
Toys R Us.
Toys R Us. No?
They're all out of business, right?
Yeah.
They sponsored us too much. We don't have a sponsor, but we do have a couple shout outs.
Who do we got?
Number 1, David A. Listens to us while doing his AutoCAD and inventor work at his co-op. So a double win for us right there. He'd like an episode on Polaris, which is kind of fitting for this with all their snowmobiles.
Oh, Polaris, the company. Gotcha.
Yes, as well as job titles. And I think that one's kind of interesting because there are a lot of job titles out there, and I don't know why there's so many. So thank you for listening, David, and thanks for the patience for your shout out. He's one of the people that, I've probably been promising for 9 years. And then Clara N wrote in, hello from Germany. That's pretty cool. Claims her English isn't that good, but she writes better than either you or I do, so I'm not really buying all of that.
you know my English is not good, James,
We set the bar low.
especially whenever it's the spells.
Yes, the spells.
Yeah.
She's smarter than us too. She was deciding between chemical and electrical engineering.
Geez.
Civil and mechanical's beneath her, she said. And listens during shorter runs, which also means she's in better shape than us because there's no such thing as a short run in my book. So
Exactly.
there's that. If any of you would like a shout out, if you want some amazing stickers, if you want to just say hello to Luke and I, why don't you email us at unprofessionalengineering@gmail.com.
And don't forget to like, share, and review all of our episodes. And as usual, you can yell at your smart device to play the Unprofessional Engineering Podcast.
Wouldn't it be a great Christmas present for them to leave us a nice review?
It would be. It really would be. Or maybe that, I don't know, Ford Bronco that I wanted.
That
Either
would
one,
be a good second choice.
Just saying.
All right, moving on.
Okay, so we covered toboggans, we covered saucers. The next one is inflatable sleds, and I've never had good luck with inflatable sleds, James, because
No?
number one, they need relatively fresh, soft snow because they're vinyl, they're inflatable. You know, any rock or stick or even ice can slice these things open. The good part about inflatables is they are crazy fast. Like it is ridiculous how fast these inflatable sleds are. And they can be
Super
all
good for
shapes and
travel
sizes.
too, because
Yeah,
you can deflate them
exactly.
and pack them up.
Exactly. And then the last one I want to talk about, and this is the one you alluded to, and
Okay.
you were given some stats on. This one is called the Flexible Flyer, and I never knew it was called that. This is the classic one that you see. It has the wooden stick on the front that you can steer with. It has metal rails, and typically it has a wooden deck that's on it. So it's only running on two metal, exceptionally sharp rails that I'm sure kids get hurt on all the time. So these are really great for icy conditions or packed snow. They don't do really well with super deep snow just because they kind of run into it and they don't have a front end on them to have that kind of plow effect. But some history on the flexible flyer. You gave some of those stats earlier. A gentleman by the name of Samuel Leeds Allen patented the first flexible flyer in 1889 in Kissimmee, New Jersey. So he was an inventor, an engineer that did a lot of work for the farming industry.
Yeah.
And what he did was in the wintertime when they weren't building farm equipment and doing things for farms, he needed a way to kind of keep busy. So he invented the flexible flyer.
Yeah, it
And
kept the farm hands busy making those on the off season, huh?
exactly.
Cool.
And crazy, this thing literally was made by Samuel Leeds. I forget the name of the actual company that he had, but all the way up until 1968, the same company was making it. And then some company called Leisure Group of Los Angeles bought it. They moved all of the production to Ohio. Then in 1973, a private investment group bought it, and they moved all of the production to Illinois. And then the last two purchases in 1989, production was moved to China, and then it's been produced in mainland China since basically 1989. Any flexible flyer, unless you get one of those classic ones, was made in China.
What private investment companies what we need to buy? A sled making company.
So I don't know, man. They make a lot of sleds. So fun fact, in 1915, this is 1915, 120,000 flexible flyers were sold. And
I know.
What happened was he moved to selling at department stores. So think like Macy's,
that's how
Kaufman's,
you get the big money.
that sort of thing. Like he was trying to sell this at like local hardware stores, but when he went to major department stores is where he had a lot of his success.
Is Kaufman's still a thing?
It is.
It is?
Oh, no, not Kaufman's.
Macy's.
Yeah, Macy's is still downtown. That's right.
One more fun fact for you. In 1928, 6 flexible flyers went to the South Pole with Admiral Richard E. Byrd as part of the exploration mission.
Interesting.
So, I guess you can go sled riding there too.
You can go. My guess is they were pulling them.
Probably.
But their biggest advantage of the flexible flyer is it's one of the very few sleds that you can actually steer.
That's nice.
Now, if you've ever been on one, you know that the steering really doesn't work.
No,
it's not very accurate. It gives you this false sense of safety that just really isn't there because you're careening down a hill at like 20 miles an hour head first.
Do you have any good sled riding stories for us, Luke?
I do.
Can you share one or no?
So this one is a safety story, kids. Never do this. So we had this awesome hill whenever I was growing up in Pleasant Hills, Pennsylvania, south of Pittsburgh.
Which makes it sound like you would have good hills.
And my sister, this wasn't me personally, it was my sister, I ran. So great hill. It was a double whoop hill, probably about 200 yards long. And at the very end of it, there was like an access road for the people that lived on the street, but they were never on it. So it was safe, right? So my sister starts and she hits the first whoop and I'm down at the bottom of the hill and all of a sudden I see a car coming down this access road really slow in the deep snow. And, my mathematical mind went to work instantly and I was like, she's going to intersect that, like her speed and how he's going, like she's literally going to hit like the side of this car.
Your sister's going to get run over and you say you ran away?
Oh, well, hold on. I start screaming, stop, 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 stop to the person in the car and my sister, and I'm yelling and screaming and it seemed like slow motion and the car stopped, but he stopped directly in her path. So her legs went underneath the car in between the wheels and like from the torso up, she smashed into the side of the car.
Oh my gosh.
Full speed. I think she got knocked out because I saw that happen and I ran.
Oh, you're a good brother.
And I think about like 10 minutes later, I came back out and the person in the car, it was a neighbor, was talking to my sister and she was okay. The car was pretty dented. She really hit this car hard. But
it was like Han Solo. Like
exactly. Oh my goodness. It was so bad. And then the only one that I have is this was in a place called Baldwin, which is again south of Pittsburgh. And it was called Red Dog Road. It got closed off in the wintertime. It was literally like half a mile long and it was like the best place to sled ride. So I was sled riding there and I almost hit a deer. That's
interesting.
So at the very, very bottom of the hill, it's like the fastest spot. And all of a sudden, like, I just saw brown in front of my eyes. A deer was jumping across the road, and that's my most exciting. I've never been hurt. I've never, done anything crazy. So,
well, I might have some stories, but we don't really have a whole lot of time left. So we got a lot to get through. If we have extra time at the end, I'll share them.
All right.
But before we go on anymore, let's take a break for this week's Luke's Rant.
So I don't have a rant, James.
Yes.
But I've been on this social media fast, I'm calling it, for the last week. And apparently a lot of stuff has happened that I've missed. And you wanted to ask me about one in particular.
I really wanted to know your opinion of the monolith situation.
Aliens.
Aliens.
Fact.
I should have expected that was your answer.
Actually, no. So the last monolith thing I saw, because again, it's been about a week since I've been on social, it was the one that was in like the desert out west, and some guys in a helicopter saw it and they landed and looked at it, and like the reporting is like, oh, this is aliens, this is that. Like you could see the Phillips head screws on the corner seams of this. It was like a triangular shaped monolith, and it's just like, aliens don't go to Lowe's to buy their hardware, and like you could just see like if aliens are making this, then I'm not afraid of aliens anymore because they have terrible manufacturing processes and they're not going to make anything.
If they don't go to Lowe's, are you saying aliens are like Home Depot people or no?
No. So no, I personally think it's probably, I don't know, maybe there's a movie coming out.
That's my thought, is it's like a clever movie promotion or something.
Something's going on. And then you get all these copycats that I'm sure are popping up all over the world. Yeah, it seems like a lot of work to like build this thing, install it in the the dead of night, and I guess they take them away, right? I guess they put them and they remove them.
Seems like more work than I would do.
So what do you think, James? Aliens?
I think I think aliens is the most likely situation, but I'm thinking movie stunt, or I don't know, someone's just really bored during COVID. I don't know. Okay, moving on. Do you want to talk about science or safety first?
Let's do safety first. So over 30,000, mostly kids, are hurt and require medical attention almost every single year. And these are just the ones that are reported.
How many?
30,000.
Wow.
So,
and 90% aren't reported.
Aren't going. So if you take that number, there's probably like, over 100,000 people, predominantly kids, probably get hurt. My sister, perfect example. She probably had a concussion. That's probably what's wrong with her now.
That explains a lot.
She clearly probably should have went to the hospital. So a couple of tips. And kids, regardless of what James and I say during this episode, always listen to your parents. First of all, bundle up, wear a helmet. I never did. Did you wear a helmet, James?
No.
Yeah, wear a helmet. They say wear like one of those snowboarding or ski helmets.
Well, if you think about it, though, when we were growing up, helmets weren't as much of a thing. I know they existed, but they weren't such a thing. But
Yeah.
now kids are required to do it riding bikes and everything else.
Mhm.
They're probably more used to it. So
Yeah.
I'll be okay with that.
Yeah. So wear a helmet, check for obstacles are the obvious ones. Make sure the landing area, that is where
Like
your
cars.
slowdown is nice and safe. Make sure there isn't like a building right there or,
Yeah,
or
that's
a
fair.
road or a street. It says avoid steep and icy hills.
Oof.
What's the point of sled riding if it's
I'm
not
with you.
steep and icy? Again,
I feel like if
completely
you're
ignore
doing
everything we're saying,
everything
kids.
else, if you're wearing a helmet, if you're making sure
Yeah.
your landing spot's nice, go with icy. It's all
Yeah.
good.
But again, listen to your parents, kids. Choose a sled that you can steer. They don't exist, so I don't know why that is. I don't know why that's on there. Use an actual sled. We would do this thing where we would get these really heavy-duty garbage bags,
I've done
and
that. Yeah.
we would hold them open, and you would run and dive head first into the garbage bag and slide down the hill.
Mhm.
Observe passenger limits. Yeah, never did that. Feet first. That's for losers. No
That's for
tricks.
losers.
No tricks. Like who doesn't build a jump and you go
Oh,
and a person
absolutely.
lays down?
Man, does
right-
that hurt when you
right
land?
behind.
Oh my gosh.
Did you jump people? Did you
Oh.
ever jump people?
Obviously, who
Okay.
doesn't do that?
Of course, supervise parents. Sled during the daytime. Again, that's kind
That's
of
a
for
good one.
losers.
Yeah. No, that's
Um,
a good one.
Again, don't listen to us.
Okay.
Never ride a sled being pulled by a vehicle. What fun is that?
That's yeah.
Don't walk up the hill on the path of the sledders. That's kind of a standard one.
You know what? If you do that, you deserve to get
And
hit.
finally, if you think you're going to crash, the best thing to do is to roll off of the sled and slow
fair.
yourself down.
And that's
and
kind of fun too.
sacrifice the sled.
Oh,
So,
but then you have to walk and get it. Oh, that's the worst.
so how many of these rules did you observe, James? I'm guessing virtually none.
I checked the spot before I sled ride. Sledded.
Sledded.
I
think is the
didn't.
word.
I didn't do it at night.
You
I
never
didn't-
sled rode at night.
Well, usually I didn't. And I made sure there weren't cars that were going to hit me. Other than that, I probably didn't follow many of these. Luke.
Okay.
One that I saw, I don't know if you mentioned, was if you're a kid, you're an adult, whatever age you are, make sure that someone out there knows where you're sled riding at.
Yeah.
Because if you smash into a car, you break your leg, you do something, you want someone to know where you're at.
And most of the accidents are either breaks, concussions, or
Yeah.
lacerations from the metal sleds. So,
Ooh,
and again,
chop
I'm
a
joking.
finger off.
I'm joking, kids. Listen to your parents. Follow each and every one of these.
That's right.
With that said,
Let's get
talk
some
about
science.
let's talk about how to make your sleds faster. Okay. So when you're actually going down the hill, you're actually skimming across a microscopic thin layer of what is called melt water. And this melt water is created by the friction of the sled moving over top of the ice. And this is actually the primary lubricant that's happening. This is usually occurring right around 32 degrees Fahrenheit. So a couple of things. If it's crazy cold, kids, don't sled. It's just going to be icy, and that layer won't build up. That melt water layer won't form. And then if it's too warm, then the snow actually grabs, and this is called a capillary drag effect.
Ooh.
So if you've ever seen like
Science.
water on the side of a glass that is holding on. So why is the water holding on to the side of a glass? It's
Magic.
It's not magic.
Oh.
It's the capillary drag effect. And think about the bottom of your sled when it's really wet, just hundreds of thousands of water molecules holding on to the bottom of your sled. So that's why when it gets really slushy and really wet, it's really
Gross.
not great for sled riding because it's actually that drag effect. So the other thing you could do is you could add what are called hydrophobic lubricants. So hydrophobic
You're getting
lubricants
serious now.
are exactly what they sound like. They are lubricants that reject water, or they push water out of the way. They don't mix well. And the 4 that I have, a gentleman tested these, and the best one is the first one, candle wax. Just steal one of your mom's candles, kids,
Interesting.
and you rub it all on the bottom. You don't want to do a super thick layer because then it catches debris. But
Like
just
you're
a
not
nice,
melting it on it.
no,
You're
no,
just like rubbing the wax on.
you're just rubbing just like you would
Ah,
wax a ski, the
it's a
way
good
they wax
idea.
skis. The second one is WD-40.
Mm,
WD stands for water displacement, so it's
okay.
clearly hydrophobic.
Fun fact.
The next one is Pam, just like Clark did. I think it was a version of Pam.
Well,
Uh,
yeah.
and then the last one is hardwood paste. So this is for polishing your hardwood floors. So any one of those
Oh.
four. Candle wax did the best, though. That is the number one increase in speed.
And if you need a candle, just let me know. I have about 10 billion of them. So thanks, wife, for that. Those are great tips, Luke.
Yes.
My goodness. I loved your science. I started getting into the friction of things and Newton's laws of motion, law of inertia, object in motion tends to stay in motion, equal and opposite reaction, all that jazz. It's too wordy. Let's just say gravity can help you on a hill to move faster, and then all the stuff that you said.
Well, and less surface area. So if you think about
Yes.
friction, and that's why the runner sleds tend to be faster because there's far less surface area between you and your sled in the snow. Where if you're on one of those big floppy, plastic sleds, it's like you got 2 feet of surface area touching.
Well, I'm sure you did this as well, but even if you're on like a pretty steep hill, there were times, especially depending on the snow conditions, where you basically just push the sled down and make your path so that then you can start riding on it. And the more you ride on it, the faster you keep going and the more distance you cover. So good stuff. Okay. So all I have left are some top sleds to buy and some fun facts. Do you have anything else you want to talk about?
That's all I got.
Okay, fun facts for you. The longest toboggan run in the world is found in Grindelwald, Switzerland. It takes a 25-minute, is it gondola or gondola?
I think it's I've heard gondola.
Ride, me too, for 2-hour hike to reach the start of it. So you have to put 2.5 hours in just to get on this sucker. And then it's all downhill and it runs for 15 kilometers and takes an hour to finish. That sounds cool.
Is that town named after the bad guy in Harry Potter?
I think so.
Okay.
Well, one of the bad guys in the other ones.
The prequel.
The prequel, yes. The world's most famous sled? Rosebud from Citizen Kane.
Oh, I remember Rosebud.
It's a Yankee Clipper is the name of it. The sled gets its name because early competitors thought it helped to bob their heads. I mentioned that.
Yep.
And then I think there's only two there's 2 recreational bobsled tracks in the United States, and both of them are at sites of past Olympic Games. So Park City, Utah and Lake Placid, New York are the only 2.
Would you do that?
I would not, no. And you know why? Because the sleds go through the course in less than a minute and the riders experience 5 Gs of force. Astronauts experience 3 Gs. So no, I would not be doing that. Yeah.
So a guy on a bobsled is experiencing more G's than a lady astronaut.
Yeah, on depending on the track, yes.
That's crazy. Well, I guess you're really up against those curves sometimes. And wow, I did not know
I would
that.
die. I would faint and then I'd die.
We should do something really specific on like winter. I know we did Olympic sports, but we should do something specifically on like sleds and maybe winter sledding, like toboggan,
like
skeletons.
this episode. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. And then sleds to buy real quick. Number 1, if you're an adult, let's put that out there because safety first, and you're looking to really fly, there's the Yukon Hammerhead Pro HD steerable snow sled. This thing is a monster. It has like what looks like a very soft, flexible, part to lay on. It has 2 skis on the front. It has 2 in the back. It's drivable. It costs $250.
Oh, wow.
So you got to be pretty serious about this. The next is the KL Industries Terrain Sport Sled. It's literally a piece of formed plastic with a string on it. Everybody's used one of those before, but this thing's much cheaper. It's more like $25. The Flexible Flyer Snow Screamer. It looks like a boogie board, but it has 4 handles on it. It looks really cool because it's like green and camo. And,
Okay.
It's a $45 there. Then there's the Zippy 2-tone series. It's a freestyle luge snow sled. It's so weird. It looks like a kid's toy. Like there's a seat and you grab onto a handle and just it looks like it moves.
Okay.
don't buy it for your children, it says. And it does have a weight capacity of 250 pounds. So I think it's for adults.
Yes.
There's always the Go Floats winter snow tube. Make sure you get one with a repair kit. The Lucky Bums Kids Toboggan Sled. This is like you said, you kind of just pull them around on this one,
Yep.
right? And then the Flexible Flyers saucer is still, like you're saying, being produced and an old favorite. So those are some of the options. Who doesn't like riding down the hill in the cold, snow, getting sprayed in the face, falling, getting it down your
Do you like the
snowsuit?
snow? Do you like being outside in the snow? And
No, I don't.
You don't seem like you like the cold kind of person as you're sitting
No.
there with your sweatshirt on in your house.
Yes, I don't like the cold.
Okay.
I did go sled riding when I was little. One quick story with a bunch of my friends, we would go to the local golf course, one of the two local golf
That
courses.
seems like you're not allowed, but go ahead.
You're not allowed, correct? So kids don't do that. And what did you call them? Whoops, a double whooper?
Yeah, the double whoops.
So we found the double whoops area and we'd go whoop. And then of course we built the ramp at the end to
Have to be
fly
able to
off
jump
of.
at the end.
We had two really big, I didn't, two of my friends had like really big, heavy, thick plastic sleds that would fly once the track was made. What I think we didn't realize at the time is that the first whoop was actually the number 1, 2, 3 green.
Okay.
And the number 3 green come the springtime had many sled riding tracks across it. So all of the golfers were none too happy that some rascally kids were riding over their green.
So final disclaimer, kids. Listen to your parents when you're sled riding. Follow all the safety tips regardless of what James and I just said.
I think that's fair. Hopefully you all enjoyed learning about sled riding. Luke actually laid some science out for you for the first time in the history of unprofessional engineering. I loved it. If you want to talk to us about sled riding, if you want to share stories with us, if you want amazing stickers, or if you just want to say hi, why don't you email us at unprofessionalengineering@gmail.com. And until next time.
See ya.